You're crouched at a water hole in East Africa, roughly 100,000 years ago. Something shifts beneath your palm. Not mud, scales, and 2 seconds later a puff adder's fangs are buried in your wrist. No hospital, no antivenom, no phone signal. Just you, a burning wrist, and whatever your ancestors already knew, passed down long before anyone understood what venom even was. So how did ancient humans actually survive bites like this, for hundreds of thousands of years, with no working medicine and no idea what was happening inside their own blood? Today, a snakebite victim in most cities is a short ambulance ride from antivenom, with a good chance of walking out fine. For most of the roughly 300,000 years modern humans have existed, none of that existed. No serum, no germ theory, no clear sense that venom was a substance rather than a curse. And yet, enough people survived to keep the species going. That's the actual mystery. Start with the oldest written record of the problem. Sometime between 660 and 330 BCE, priests attached to the Egyptian goddess Serket compiled a scroll now known as the Brooklyn Papyrus, the world's earliest known structured medical text on snakebite. Egyptologist Serge Sonoran spent years translating it, though his French edition wasn't published until 1989, more than a decade after his death. The papyrus describes 34 separate species of snake in clinical enough detail that herpetologists still argue today over which real animals match which entries. 34. That's not folklore. That's field data, collected bite by bite, across centuries. But look at what the priests actually prescribed once they'd made a diagnosis. Bandages, salves, incantations invoking Serket directly. Nothing in that pharmacy reliably neutralized a neurotoxin, because nothing like that would exist for another 2,500 years. So if description couldn't save you, what could? The real defense started long before any bite happened. In 2006, biological anthropologist Lynn Isbell at the University of California, Davis, published a theory that rewired how scientists think about primate vision itself. Her argument, roughly 60 million years of living alongside venomous snakes, is why primates, humans included, evolved forward-facing eyes and an oversized visual processing structure deep in the brain called the pulvinar. Later brain imaging work she cites found something striking. In macaques, specific pulvinar neurons fired within about 55 milliseconds of a snake image appearing, faster than the same neurons responded to a monkey's face. 55 milliseconds. That's quicker than you can consciously register you've seen anything at all. Translation: that flash of dread when something long and thin moves wrong in your peripheral vision isn't a modern overreaction. It's an alarm system, tuned by tens of millions of years of snakes trying to kill your ancestors, and mostly failing. Everyone assumes ancient humans needed a weapon against snakes, thicker skin, some biological trick to shrug off the poison. The truth runs the other way. Their best defense wasn't in their blood, it was in their eyes, and it worked before the fangs ever made contact. Now compare that to animals that did evolve actual chemical resistance, because humans, notably, are not among them. In 2015, biologist Danielle Drebeck and colleagues at the University of Minnesota, publishing in the journal Toxicon, mapped the exact molecular target snake neurotoxins attack, a receptor called the nicotinic acetylcholine receptor, essentially the switch that tells muscle to fire. In honey badgers, hedgehogs, and mongooses, that receptor independently mutated at the precise site the toxin needs to grip, at least 4 separate times across mammalian evolution. 4. Different lineages, different continents, the same tiny fix to the same molecular lock. Humans never evolved that mutation. To a snake's venom, our receptors look exactly like any other unprotected mammals. Which means every human who survived a serious envenomation before the 20th century did it despite their biology, not because of it. So without built-in resistance, and without real medicine, what was actually keeping people alive? For most of history, the honest answer was luck, timing, and dose. A smaller snake, a partial bite, less venom injected. Effective treatment simply didn't exist yet. That changed in 1895. After studying cobra venom out of the Pasteur Institute near Bac Lieu, in what's now Vietnam, French physician Albert Calmette produced the first working antivenom serum, made by injecting animals with venom and harvesting their immune response. What pushed him there was a flood that drove cobras into a village and killed 4 people within hours. 4 deaths triggered a serum that would eventually save millions. It took another 30 years for the United States to license its own version, in 1927. Before any of that, cultures on every continent kept their own remedies. Incisions, herbal poultices, tobacco leaf elixirs in parts of Central America, almost none of which did anything measurable against the toxin itself. So line up the real story. Egyptian priests could describe a bite with precision and still had nothing to cure it. Evolution gave primates extraordinary eyes, and gave certain mammals immune, receptor-level armor, but gave humans neither the armor nor an easy antidote. For nearly the entirety of human existence, working medicine against venom simply did not exist. What did exist was pattern recognition, handed down mouth to mouth, which shape in the grass to fear, which sound to freeze at, which caution kept a hunting party alive one more season. The real survival tool was never chemical. It was memory, functioning as the only antivenom anyone had. You're still crouched at that waterhole, in a sense. Every time your eyes snap toward a curled garden hose before your conscious mind catches up, 60 million years of primate history is quietly doing its job. You never asked for that reflex. You inherited it, the same way your ancestors inherited caution instead of immunity, story instead of serum. It took our species roughly 300,000 years to build an actual cure, and only a few seconds of shared attention, generation after generation, to keep enough of us alive to get there. The real antivenom was never a substance. It was every ancestor who noticed the snake first, and said so. You're kneeling at a waterhole 100,000 years ago when something under your hand turns out to have scales. 2 seconds later, venom is moving through your body, and there's no hospital, no antivenom, no way to call for help. This is the real story of how humans survived one of nature's most efficient killers for almost the entirety of our history, long before medicine had an answer. From an Egyptian priesthood's snakebite manual to the evolutionary quirks that gave primates their eyes, here's what actually kept our ancestors alive.